Good afternoon. My name is Natasha Rattu and I represent the national charity Karma Nirvana. I'd like to start by thanking Westgate Chambers for this opportunity to come and talk about the work of Karma Nirvana and to talk to you, our audience, about the work that we are doing across the UK to tackle honour-based abuse. I recall around a decade ago coming to Westgate Chambers to talk about these issues. So I'm really pleased that we've been invited back to come and tell you a little bit more about the work that we've progressed since then and to think about what work we all need to continue doing in this space. Before I get into content, I just want to start by apologising for not being able to be there in person. If I could, I absolutely would, but today Karma Nirvana are we're holding our ninth Day of Memory conference in person in Leeds, and this year marks 30 years of Karma Nirvana. So we're having quite a big event in Leeds to mark this really important day. The Day of Memory is one of the most important days in our calendar because it marks a collective opportunity to remember all of those that we have lost to honour-based abuse. And it also provides an opportunity to bring partners together, to bring practitioners together, to really refocus on our drive and our energy in this space, and to think about the vital work that we are yet to do. 9 years ago, we campaigned for this day, and we campaigned for this day to take place on the birthday of Shafelia Ahmed. 20 years ago, Shafelia was murdered by her parents in the name of honour, and her death represents a landslide of failures, a landslide of missed opportunities to protect, to safeguard some of the most vulnerable people within our society affected by honour-based abuse. We know that Shafelia, prior to her death, had reported honour-based abuse to her school, had reported abuse to police, to social care. She'd even reported to housing that she wanted refuge because she didn't want to marry. All of those opportunities represented a chance to save her life. And for us at Karma Nirvana, her death is very profound in that not only does it represent a landslide of failures, but it also represents a real variety of opportunities for learning and for change. Now, as I said earlier on, this year marks 20 years since Shafelia died, and this poses a really important question. Well, 20 years ago, what has changed today? How much have we progressed in this space? The sad reality is that actually progress in this space has been very piecemeal and very slow. This year, we heard about the death of a young woman called Samaya Begum in Bradford. Now, Samaya, a few years prior to her death, had reported that she was going to be forced to marry by her father, and a forced marriage protection order was taken out to protect her. This year, we saw the conviction of her uncle, who was given a life sentence for her murder. And the reality is that not enough was done to protect her. A forced marriage protection order was taken out, and that forced marriage protection order did not do anything to safeguard her in her life. So what does this highlight? I think what this highlights, we're talking 20 years ago, we're talking about a conviction this year, it highlights that there is still so much work that needs to be done. So let's start by thinking about actually, well, what is honour-based abuse? Because surely in order to understand how we progress work in this space, we've got to understand what it is. So the term honour-based abuse is used internationally to describe abuse that's carried out to protect or defend the honour of the family and or community. Now, victims of honour-based abuse, and we hear this through our work time and time again, are expected to live their lives according to honour-related norms. And in this space, what this means is that many people experience honour-based oppression, where actually they don't even do anything that goes against the expected norms because they don't recognise that what they're experiencing is often synonymous with coercive control and abuse. There are so many different potential expectations that we hear about through our helpline. So Karma Nirvana deliver a national helpline commissioned by the Home Office for victims of honour-based abuse. And we hear subjectively from individual to individual lots of different expectations that are placed on individuals. But just to share with you some of the common expectations that we hear things such as expectations for people to agree to marriage proposals, even if they don't want to marry, for them to not have relationships prior to marriage, to not have sex prior to marriage. There could even be expectations that they have to be straight or that they have to study particular courses to kind of continue particular professions. It could be that they have to be dutiful, they have to listen to everything that they are told by parents, by relatives or spouses. And where a person doesn't uphold these expectations and they don't uphold these norms that are placed upon them, and where a perpetrator feels like they are losing that control, that victim may then be punished on account of that. And this could be through a perpetrator imposing further control methods to limit their life, to put pressure on them to comply, but it could also be through physical punishment. And this is where a perpetrator is carrying out a punishment with an aim to regain that control and to uphold that honour, and sometimes to also save face that is perceived as being lost if that victim is perceived as dishonouring themselves, dishonouring the family, dishonouring the community. Another real recognised enabler to honour-based abuse is this concept of shame, because shame prevents a person from feeling able to talk, from feeling able to talk about and disclose abuse because of the perceived stigma and the fear that if they do that, they will be bringing shame by speaking out. In the last year alone, our national helpline has responded to 9,616 contacts from the UK alone, and we recognise that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Honour-based abuse is massively underreported. We know again statistically that there are 12 to 15 honour killings that take place in the UK every year, but again, this doesn't really represent the reality as to how many people are dying at the hands of honour-based abuse. So with this in mind, it's really important on this important day of memory to reflect on what can be done to prevent honour-based abuse, because we know, despite a heightened profile of talking about this issue for decades, we're still no closer to eradicating it. Let alone eradicating it, we're no closer to really understanding the true scope, scale and prevalence of it within the UK. Honour-based abuse remains a real invisible but thriving hidden harm. And it is for this reason that today, Karma Nirvana are taking action through launching a national new definition for honour-based abuse, because it may shock our audience to learn that there is no statutory definition, no government definition for what honour-based abuse is. And we feel really strongly that our government cannot begin to respond to an issue unless they properly define it. We recognise through our work that until a definition is put onto the statute books, until it's properly reflected in government language, this issue is going to continue being misunderstood, underrepresented and inadequately resourced, meaning that victims and survivors will not be getting the support that they need, that their experiences are not reflected authentically, and we're just totally missing the mark on making people safe. Victims and survivors deserve better, and the definition that Karma Nirvana have co-created with survivors puts their voice at the heart and centre of understanding this type of abuse. We're really encouraging our partners on this call today, we're really encouraging government to adopt this definition, because without that definition, without a statutory definition to frame this abuse, we're going to continue to miss opportunities, we're going to continue to miss spotting the signs, and we're not going to be able to prevent potential fatalities. I'd like to end by thanking you all for listening to my presentation and ask if you'd like to know more about the work of Karma Nirvana, including the work on our definition, including about our helpline, any data or statistics. Please do get in touch by visiting our website, which is www.karmanirvana.org.uk. and you can get further details for how to get in touch. So I'd like to thank you again for listening, and again thank Westgate Chambers for this really, really important opportunity to talk about our work.